thin. But I don't know, but it's not near as cold up there, it's the same temperature. Well, I can't see anybody.
Now Happy New Year. Happy Wednesday, thank you all for being here, and we'll open our meeting with prayer. Danny Lynn.
You pray with me. Gracious God, you've given us another day. It's a gift of life you've given to us. Even the breath that sustains our lives comes from you, and we are grateful. We pray, oh God, that you'll help us to live in such a way that our gratitude might flow out of us into others, at a kind of peace, a kind of happiness that is unequaled in any other venue. Thank you for the seasons in which we've been through. Thank you for the blessings that we have received, the blessings we've been offered, or that we have been able to offer to others. For this time of coming together with seeing friends and making new friends, we give you thanks for this food that sustains our bodies, and for your spirit that sustains our souls. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because I had no idea what song we were going to sing. But it turns out, Tony and Nancy are going to lead us in Odd Line Sign.
She said we're doing Old Lang Syne, so we're going to do this. It says, should old acquaintance speak for God and never brought to mind, should old acquaintance speak for God in the day of Old Lang Syne. For Old Lang Syne, my dear, for Old Lang Syne, we'll drink a cup of kindness yet for the sake of Old Lang Syne. Hope you remember those 8 lines, so here we go.
My understanding is the only visiting Rotarian we have is our speaker. I'll yield the honor of introducing them to you.
Thank you very much. So, to jump to the chase, Randy Perkins, Pastor Colonel Randy Perkins is our guest speaker today, and the visiting Rotarian and his wife Rita. Thank you all for being here. Do we have other guests of Rotarians? Steve?
I have 2 guests today. Jennifer Mayhall, registered nurse, soon to be doctor. Jennifer Mayhall, which is really cool. And then Candace Neary, who is insurance services right here in Thomasville, North Carolina.
Welcome to you. And I know that you all are, you both are prospective members, so glad you are here.
This is their 3rd visit.
And this is your 3rd visit, so hopefully either someone who's not that interested or will get it soon. Have we got one meeting? So, for announcements, let's start with, we're missing a lot of people. Some really key people. So Kim has been sick. Please keep her informed. That means we don't have bulletins. We don't have the announcements to Mary Jane, so supposed to be presenting our speaker days out. I don't know who else is out. David Snap, that's right. So, thank you all for being here. Good to see you. Happy New Year. A couple of announcements that I know about is, and I've talked about this a couple of times in December, so one more time, I'm going to send around a sign-up sheet for if you want to order Rotary sweatshirts or hoodies. And you just have to put down name, which one you want, size, color, and how you're going to pay for it. You have mobility. I've already had a couple of people fill some of these out. We'll probably place an order. What do you think, next week or two?
Whenever.
Okay, that's what we're going to do it. So we'll pass this around.
And while she's starting that around, I've had a couple people mention to me that our website is not up, so they try to go online and pay, but the website is not working. So I will check into that. Today was the first time I was aware of it, so just see if we can get that figured out.
We have an upcoming new member orientation and Discover Rotary. Jared, would you like to share information on that?
If I can remember the information, I'll share it.
I wrote it down.
January 18th at Cross Ties. Then we got at 5:30 to 7:30. And so what we'd like to do is the first hour, about 5:30 to 6:30, obviously, for anyone who has not gone through new member orientation. And I don't mean like the quasi one that I did a couple months ago, like the actual good one for new members. Please be there. I promise you it'll be fun, not dry and boring. And, you know, if it's been a while since you had orientation, you might want to come to this too, because you're probably going to learn some new things for Rotary. So please feel free to come to that. 5:30 at Cross Ties, January 18th. And then the second hour, 6:30 to 7:30, is just going to be a Rotary fellowship. So I want everybody to come to that if you can, just for us to have a good time together. There'll be some hors d'oeuvres, drinks there as well. So I think that's it with that. So hopefully we'll see you on the 18th at Cross Ties.
And a great opportunity again to invite prospective members. So if there's somebody that you've been thinking would be really fun to have as a part of our club, that's a great time to have them come. So there's that. A reminder for board members that we have our board meeting on Wednesday the 17th, 5:15 to 6:15 on Zoom. And Paul Mitchell's going to join us as a special guest at the beginning of our meeting to talk about an opportunity for Rotary with a scholarship fund. Any other announcements? Things going on that we all need to know about. Can we normally tell us about?
Bills of Grace is on the 9th, and I would love to have someone help me with that.
Oh, 9th of this month, which is what, next Tuesday?
Yes,
Anyone that can help,
just see me after this.
see you after. And I have your dishes here, don't leave without those.
Thank you.
Yeah, Meals of Grace is always a good time, it's fun, especially when Elaine and Golden Flames. So get with Elaine and so we can feed the hungry in our community.
We usually do about 75.
They find out Rotary is serving the meal, not some other group, and they come out the road and say, no, it's always a good meal. Any other announcements? I think we're up to split pump, right?
We took in $97 today. Everybody's interested in grand total. Well, we'll split. They draw the plate. $2,944.
$2,900.
You should have bought one. Verified that. Tickets are all with the gold shaking. Sir, would you draw the bucket? Larry, y'all saw. Read the last three numbers.
Yes, sir. 179.
I was a key figure here.
So we live to play another day. So I will ask Randy Perkins to come up and give us our polio update. Randy was the district governor in 2019, 2020, post-year of COVID. And he has been the Polio Plus chair since then, and is now for 3 years. And is now the vice governor. Okay. And if you come up, let me take just a minute, and we'll switch over laptops.
While she's doing that, I would just like to say that it is a pleasure and an honor to be before you today to talk about polio. And along the way, I'm going to tell a few stories. And every time I say that, I think of my mom. Because when she would hear a funny story, she would always say, "Oh my." And if she heard a sad story, she would say, "Oh my." And if she heard something in between, she would say, "Oh my." And I heard that all my life, and I feel like that y'all are probably going to need to say that sometime during my program. So on the count of 3, let's say "oh my" together. 1, 2, 3. Oh my! There you go. They're trainable. Very trainable. So before I actually start, I want to ask you a question. Look back at your high school years and your college years, and I want you to think about one particular assignment that changed your life. I want you to raise your hand if you can think of one assignment that changed your life. I'm not going to call on you. This is unusual. There we got one. Anybody else? Well, I'm going to tell you an experience that I had when I was in college that changed my life. I mean, it was a definite life change. It was my first year in college, and I went to college, and I did everything at college except study. I didn't go to class. I was where the parties were. And I did that until midterms, and I realized that English literature, I was going to fail. And if I failed English literature, I might as well just go ahead and drop out of college, because my other grades were pretty bad. So I did the same thing you guys would do. I went to my professor and I said, "Look, I need some extra credit." He said, "Well, you're going to have to grovel first. You hadn't been to class, you hadn't been studying, you hadn't been doing your group assignments, you hadn't been turning in your homework." And I groveled for what seemed like forever. And she finally said, "Write this down." She said, "Gloucester, England." Then she said, 1850s. William Ernest Henley, author. 15-page report that you present to your class 3 weeks from today. So I said, "Thank you." And I started walking out the door. And on the way out, I'm thinking I'm totally screwed. I mean, there's just no way I can do that. So I did something that was really unusual. I went to the library. And the first thing I looked up was Gloucester, England. And if you lived in Gloucester, you had a pretty good living if you were wealthy. But if you were not, it was not a good place to live. Gloucester was extremely unsanitary. You had all kinds of farm animals running up and down the And diseases were rampant, especially cholera and tuberculosis. And here enters my hero, William Ernest Henley. He was a young guy, about 14 years old. And he woke up one morning, and every bone in his body and every joint in his body was just totally swollen up. He didn't look like a young boy anymore. His parents came in at daybreak. They did the same thing that you and I would do. They scooped him up, they put him in the buckboard, and they took him to find the doctor. It took 3 days to find the doctor because he was a traveling doctor. And the doctor took one look at him and he said, tuberculosis of the bone, which means that abscess started in the bone marrow and it came through the bone, through the soft tissue, through the muscle, and then to the skin, and it formed abscesses. He was put in the hospital. He stayed in the hospital most of his life. The first 6 months, after the first 6 months, doctor came in and said, look, we're going to have to take your left leg off. If we don't, you're going to die of this infection. Well, Ernest, he's not interested in dying or death, so he says, okay, doctor, take it off. And then about 6 months later, the doctor came in and said, Ernest, we're going to have to take off the other leg. And Ernest said, I don't think so. I'm going to have one leg. I'm going to die with one leg. And he decided in that very moment that he would live with whatever happened to him with that disease. He became a wordsmith, an author. He could write just about anything. He could write short stories, he could write books, he could write poems, newspaper articles. He was well loved in England for his writing. As a matter of fact, before his 10 years was over, he wrote a very powerful poem about his disease. And that was called Invictus. Have any of you ever heard Invictus? Exactly. Out of the night that follows me, he starts that poem. And he ends up with this is a poem about his relationship with his disease, and he ends up saying this: I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And what that meant was that he was going to live a normal life, as normal as he could possibly be, with that disease that he had, tuberculosis. Of course, there was no cure for it. He would have tuberculosis as long as he lived. Now, I went 3 weeks later, I went and I told my class, gave them the story, took the entire class period to talk about it. And then, as I was walking out, Professor said, Mr. Perkins. And I turned around, I looked at her, and I was afraid of the worst. And she asked me 2 questions. Anybody know what those 2 questions are? Might be. Right? Mr. Perkins, are you the master of your fate? Are you the captain of your soul? And I thought about how I went through high school and didn't really study a lot. I thought about how I was in college. I wasn't just not studying at all. And I realized at that moment that if I didn't change, I would amount to nothing. So my response to her was, yes, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. That turned my life around. But let's move forward to about 3 months ago. My wife we were in the kitchen. She was standing there at the bar. I was standing in the mail, and she opened up this envelope, and she said, Randy, we're finally going to have our class reunion, because it had been canceled due to COVID. And it was going to be at this particular house. And I looked at her and I said, you're going to have a really great time. And she looked at me and she said, yes, we are. So I knew what my marching orders were. So we went to this class reunion. And when we walked in, she started flitting around, talking to all of her classmates. And I spied a bar over here. I went to the bar and got me a Diet Coke. And right back over here on the left-hand side was a sofa. Had one seat left. I sat down on the sofa. I was just chilling with the Diet Coke. I've been there 7 or 8 minutes, and Rita came up to me, and she said, Doris, this is my husband, Randy. Doris was the lady sitting beside me. And then Rita looked at me and she said, Randy, this is Doris Rouse. She has a PhD in biology research. And she and her team discovered the vaccine for tuberculosis. And that was the ending to my story that I always wanted. I always wanted that ending to happen. Because even today, tuberculosis affects 25% of the total world's population. And you can imagine how I felt. It was like sitting beside a Jonas Salk. For me, it was overwhelming. So we talked a little while, and she said, now that we've discovered the vaccine, the hard part is getting the vaccine to the people that need it. And that's exactly the hard part for us today with polio, getting the vaccine to the people that need it. Now let's go back to 2015. I heard about this lady that was going to go to India. And her purpose was NID, National Immunization Day for Children. So we were to go over there and put 2 drops of the vaccine in children's mouths, right on top of their tongue. Rita and I got on an airplane and flew to India, and we were to meet someone there that we had never met before, and that was kind of scary. But she was a Rotarian, and I knew she would be there. We met Nancy Barbie, and she took us throughout India. And that's what we did, was every child we saw, we placed 2 drops of vaccine in that child's mouth. And we went into areas, slum areas, that had 5,000 people in them. We went into slum areas that had 100 people. One of our very first homes that we visited with our native guide, Rita and I walked in, and she put 2 drops in the mouth of a child, and then I put 2 drops of a vaccine in the mouth of a child. And it was dark in this room, in this house. This house was a fourth the size of this, and it's really old, built out of cement blocks, and you can tell they were at least 50, 60 years old. The roof was barely a roof in this house. But once I put the vaccine in that child's mouth, I saw something moving over here in the corner. See, they don't have any lights. I saw something moving. So I kind of watched it for a moment. And what I saw was a man on a furniture dolly, 4 inches off the floor. And he was moving with his fingers, totally paralyzed from polio. He was in his mid-30s, totally paralyzed with polio. And I gotta tell you something, That was overwhelming. And I went straight to my knees. I mean, I'm a big guy. I went straight to my knees. And I grabbed hold of his hand and I started talking to him. And then I realized he didn't understand anything I was saying. And then he tried to talk to me and he realized that I didn't understand anything that he was saying. But what I think, what I believe is that he was thanking us for putting those drops in those two children's mouths so they would never, never be like him. And that was a very critical moment in our career. We still have a huge problem with polio. And we've come a long way. We used to have 350,000 cases a year. And now we have, yeah, okay. Let's see. I don't know how to make this one good.
Okay.
We used to have 350,000 cases a year. Now we have 2 endemic countries. One being Pakistan and the other one being Afghanistan. Now they border each other. This problem is with these 2 countries is that Pakistan is a hotbed of infection, polio infection. And so they travel from Pakistan to Afghanistan, they infect people, they come back, and so the disease just keeps going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Now, the difficult part is the terrain in both of these countries. You may have, there's probably 1,000, maybe 2,000 different villages close to those borders. And we have difficulty finding volunteers or even paying people to go into those villages to provide that vaccine. We just recently, this year, Pakistan told us that they would provide armed support to go with our healthcare workers to provide this vaccine. We've always had assistance from Afghanistan. They've always supported the program, but it's just the terrain is so difficult to get to. I mean, you can imagine what you've seen on TV about Afghanistan and Pakistan and how terrible that terrain is. And really, it's expensive to get out there. So this, I especially like this picture right here. Thank you. I especially like this picture. This was one of the first girls that I vaccinated, inoculated, provided the 2 drops to. And when I put the drops on her tongue, she looked up and saw her mother, and her mother was crying. And the little girl was crying. But the little girl did not realize that the mom was crying out of happiness, because now that girl would never, ever have polio. This chart shows the 2 countries, the 2 endemic countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan, and in 2023, each one of those countries had 6 cases. We really believe that within the next 5 years, we will be able to obtain 0 cases in both of these countries. And then we can declare Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and the world polio free. But this is going to require a lot of assistance from every Rotarian. We're going to need to take action to get it taken care of. 5 reasons why we must eradicate polio. 1 is to improve lives, to invest in the future, to improve child health, to lower health care costs, and to make history. This will be the 2nd disease that we have eliminated. Funding is crucial to eradicating polio. You have to immunize, we have to improve hygiene, and we have to hire people to go into these 2 countries and do the work that they need to do, not just providing the shots. They literally have to train these people in these villages, in these slum areas, hygiene and how to wash their hands. They don't understand that. They don't understand that this polio virus actually lives in feces. And so when they're pulling water out of the river that has feces in it, they're giving themselves polio all over again. So this afternoon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send every one of you form for polio plus Thomas. And what I'm asking every Rotarian to do, and we've had this program now for 3 years, what I'm asking every one of you to do is to take a look at this polio plus promise form and sign it and send it in. And what we're asking you to do, the commitment we're asking you to do, is $100 a year until polio is completely eradicated. $100 a year. And we believe that's what our district needs to provide to Rotary International. Now, we'd like you to know that for every dollar that you give, the district matches that dollar. And Rotary International matches that dollar. And then Bill Gates matches that dollar 2 to 1. So your dollar becomes, what's that, $5? That becomes a lot of money that we can use to help eradicate polio. Okay, does anybody have any questions? So the point I'm trying to make is this. It's really simple to change a person's life. I mean, I look back when I was in college, that professor changed my life almost immediately. And had she not done that, I would have probably dropped out of school. I probably wouldn't have met my wife. I probably wouldn't have gone to college. Probably wouldn't have joined Rotary. Probably would not have been a governor. Probably would not have been a polio chair for 3 years. But she changed my life. And folks, we can change. It's so simple to change these children's lives with just 2 drops of vaccine. Now that man I told you about that was on that dolly, the day he got polio, he lost all of his dignity because he can't do anything for himself. He's dependent upon somebody else for everything. Food, shelter, clothing, hygiene. He's dependent upon somebody else to do all of that. We need to change that. We need to let people have their dignity. We need for them to be able to say, I am the master of my fate, and I am the captive of my soul. So I would ask, when you receive this Polio Plus Promise Form, please give it strong consideration. Sign up to give $100 a year, and we will be able to defeat this polio. Thank you very much.
Randy, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know this club has a long history of supporting the polio program. Hey, how much money have you given?
We, per capita, we give $100.
So for every member,
That doesn't mean that everybody gives 100, but per capita, we do it.
so for every member of this club, $100 given to every year to eradicate polio. Thank you all for your role in that. I do have one more thing that I meant to take care of before, and that is we have a thank you note. It says just a little thank you. Beautiful card for the money and heartwarming line from your Rotary family for everything, Nancy. So, Nancy, you're welcome, and thank you for always. And now, if you would, unless there's anything else for the good of Rotary, if you would all stand. And we have benefits of our banner over here, so you can look at the screen of our banner for our 4-way test. Just for thinking about that, Rotary International does with polio, but also the small things that we can do to make this world a better place as we go out for the next week. All the things that we think about, all the things say or do, let's ask ourselves first.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? How you doing?